Tubnet recently released, with it being a server that's got me and many others hyped for a long time, I decided to celebrate by playing 100 games of the only game I knew anything about, Crystal Rush. If you're not familiar with it, then don't worry, neither was I at the start. But if you stick around to the end, I think you'll be just as invested as I am. So get ready for 100 games of stabbing, stealing, flying, trolling, YouTubers, memes, hackers, and a whole lot of embarrassment. I played 100 games of Crystal Rush, and this is what happened. So here we are, Game 1, the first of many. Like I said earlier, I jumped into this knowing pretty much nothing about the game, except for the fact that it had the same basic idea as bedwars. However, there are many differences, as you'll see here. I started this game off by quickly browsing the shop and taking a look at my surroundings, where I found a crystal node, and thanks to this sign, I instantly knew what it was for. Already gonna give Crystal Rush some praise for this design. The whole game in general is very informing and intuitive, so it's easy to get into even if you've never heard of it, just like me. The aim of the game is to protect this big crystal you see here called the Nexus. It basically functions the same way as your bed in bedwars, that you respawn infinitely until someone else breaks it. And that was seeming pretty likely to happen this game, as before I was able to figure anything out, I was already getting attacked by my neighbor. Great. Luckily, since this game doesn't run on the fast click version, so fights last longer than 3 seconds, I was able to defend myself. After fighting him a couple more times, I was browsing casually in the shop when I discovered that golden apples are extremely cheap in this game, only 8 shards for each one. This game, as soon as I discovered the apple price, I bought as many as I could, which is actually a pretty bad idea. I'd recommend spending that with something else, especially this early into the game. You'll just probably never use that many of them before you end up dying. Another thing I'll be trying to do in this video is learning how to speed bridge. I've always been very bad at it, and I thought maybe trying to do it whenever I can in a video where I play 100 games would help me improve. And I definitely did improvement. Barely went out a couple blocks before slipping and falling into the void. I guess it's not really a void, there's builds underneath, but it pretty much looks like one. I eventually built out to the middle islands, which have better crystals, but before I could mine any, my nexus was getting destroyed. Probably shouldn't have left my door open for my neighbors, you gotta stay locked up in these parts. Yep, then some dripped out shiny rich guy walked straight into my base, ate some gapples, and clapped me before I could even be impressed. Alright, game 2. I learned some basics last game, so I should play this one a little more competently. Nope, start speed bridging straight to my neighbor's base instead of defending or getting better things. I must have already been feeling salty after the last game. He built up as well, and we immediately initiated into something I like to call neighbor warfare. Basically, it's just where instead of building up defenses or farming to get better things, 2 players or teams with bases directly next to each other constantly fight with awful gear until someone usually comes out on top by brute force. I'll just say this now because this applies in any game of not just Crystal Rush but bedwars too. Never do neighbor warfare, it's a terrible idea. All you do is waste time, get stressed, and even if you do win the confrontation, you'll be significantly weaker than all remaining players because of fighting the guy next to you practically naked instead of focusing on essential upgrades. This game, I didn't win the war and got my nexus broken, so I'm pretty much dead already. The ironic part is that not long after I got attacked by a different guy, and this would have happened even if I did win the confrontation. This is just a textbook example of why neighbor warfare is a terrible idea. Game 3 I did the more intelligent thing and actually built defenses and got better things before building out anywhere. Here I am bridging towards the central islands that contain generators for the strong crystals, which are much more useful than the ones that spawn on your island. However, what's different about them is that you can't mine them indefinitely. You have to wait for them to regenerate health before you can mine them again, so there's a much more limited supply. Strong orbs are very good currency. You can use them to buy things like iron gear, bows, TNT, and better consumables. This game I had just enough to buy a grapple orb. I wasn't too sure how it worked, but that's what these early games are for, to experiment. I assumed it worked like an ender pearl, so I threw it towards this guy's base, but quickly found out I was horribly mistaken. Well, that was a waste of 16 shards, kinda embarrassing. Decided to bridge to his base, but unfortunately for me, he was fairly competent at stabbing trespassers. Went back for another attempt and actually managed to kill him, even broke his nexus. Then his keyboard gave out on him. Poor guy. As you might have noticed, after breaking that player's crystal, I got 4 nexus crystals. These are what in my opinion give Crystal Rush one of the most interesting strategy dynamics of any PvP game. They used to buy the best items in the game, diamond gear, better totems, and even more orbs, but what's interesting is that the gear doesn't stay when you respawn. You get downgraded to more easily accessible iron armor. They also don't generate anywhere, which means in every game there's a limited supply that once spent is gone forever. This means, for example, that if a game has 5 teams, the entire game supply of nexus crystals is only 20. And remember, if anyone spends any, they are gone and can't be obtained in any other way. I'll talk more about how this affects your strategy, but that's for when there's better examples in the games I play. Anyway, 1v1 situation, I don't have a nexus or much else for that matter, and this guy's pushing me. This death was pretty bad, I'd rather not talk about it. Game 4, I'm in a different map. For some reason I thought there was only 1 after those first games. There's actually 3 maps, which is still pretty low, they need to update that. This game I built my defenses and bridged straight to the reserves. My fortune collecting was short-lived though, as the lifeline was getting dismantled back home and I had to deal with that. that. I dealt with it very poorly. He broke my nexus, I chased him down and bought a diamond sword with his nexus crystals, which pretty much meant he had broken my crystal for nothing. Since I got my nexus crystals after killing him and bought a sword with it, they are effectively out of the game. Even if I die like this, no one is getting those benefits. Which is exactly what happened. I got ambushed again, but this time by someone who actually plays the game. Game 5, here I am building up my defenses again, and you can see me starting to develop a good structure technique, even though it's still not optimal. After depleting my closest pink rock supply, I went shopping and decided to give the grapple orb another shot. However, I died in a knife fight at the mining quarry before I got to use it. Later, that guy went from being a Londoner to a mole and dug under my builds to destroy my nexus. You can probably guess what happens next. Game 6, I started off with further developing my early game strategy. Now I didn't know this at the time, but pickaxes don't only mine faster with each upgrade, but they also give more materials each time you mine, making them a very valuable investment for when you're trying to get better things. No matter how you're planning on playing, I always recommend starting off with getting exactly 8 shards and buying a stone pickaxe. It makes a big difference for a small price. However, despite my improved game planning, I got attacked almost instantly and didn't last much longer than that. Game 7, I was doing pretty well, had good defenses, loot, and stable supply of crystals. Here in the shop I noticed that bows and arrows in this game are dirt cheap, making them a very viable option. Despite this though, I don't use them very often, and strangely neither does anyone else, which shouldn't be the case. Honestly, bows are very versatile. You might have also saw me buying a speed potion. It's cheap, but I don't recommend it. If anything, it just makes it easier to fall off the map on accident. This is also where I discovered easily the most overpowered item in Crystal Rush, the wing orb. For the somewhat low price of 20 strong shards, you get an item that allows you to instantly take flight with an elytra anywhere you are. If you don't think that sounds horribly broken, just wait until you see what I do with it later in the video. It gets pretty crazy. Anyways, made my way over to this guy's base, drank my prime energy, and sucked all the goods out of his nexus. Our fight was a little sloppy, but he was just about as good at using the grapple orb as I am because he hooked himself straight over the map. He actually held that position pretty well until very stupidly trying to re-enter his home after getting evicted. Being a good landlord, I went to the last guy's base to slap him with an eviction notice, but he noped straight out of there on literally nothing. Turns out it was just my bad rendering, but I must have been so shocked I fumbled and fell off the map. Well, my sword just got downgraded, so the only hard advantage I had on him was gone, and this wasn't going to be easy. He even tried to mole into my defenses, but I wasn't about to let a rodent nibble off my life support, so I disposed of him. Yeah, but then he duked me in the middle and I wasn't able to make it back in time. My odds at this point were very slim, especially since my gamer just slowed down to a PowerPoint presentation. Off topic, but my PC sometimes gets these horrible lag spikes out of nowhere and I have no idea how to fix it. Thankfully, it doesn't happen too often in this video, but this was definitely not a good moment. Despite all this, I was making a pretty good push, as you can see from this frozen shot. I definitely should not have placed TNT when at about 5 PS, but I did anyway, and at least it was over now. Luckily, he was having some lag problems of his own, so I was able to easily break his nexus, and finally, his spirit. Victory in the first 10 games, that definitely feels good. Game 8, I started off with some very ineffective pest control. Got my nexus destroyed, and even though I chased this guy down, this game definitely wasn't going to be easy. This also just proves why neighbor warfare is horrible, especially in Crystal Rush, where even if you do take out your opponent's nexus like that guy did, he still didn't get anything from it, and is now actually at a disadvantage because in the end, I got the better gear. And even though he was better mechanically, he had no chance against me now because of how much stronger I was. Finished that guy off, and now I'm in a 1v1 with purple and my explosives. But this is where I learned that copper blocks function like bedwars glass and can't be blown up by TNT. Here I used the launch orb for the first time and I just instantly felt how broken this is. You can use it to get pretty much anywhere in a matter of seconds. He had no idea where I was. I definitely should have just jumped down to him and this would have been an easy victory. But no, I tried to be funny instead. He was just confused, but I had no upper hand on him. I wrote down in my notes this was trolling, but really I was just making a fool out of myself. Got him with my bow, but when it came time to jump down, I slipped and shattered my pelvis, so that was painful to watch. Game 9 was a quick one. I became a victim of some bedwars Pro's speedrun attempt. I managed to defend myself and went to get supplies, but I must have not been paying attention because he ran straight past me and pulled the plug on my life support. You know, I never recommend doing neighbor warfare, but if you're as good as Jamal here, you can definitely do whatever you want. Game 10 was looking to be a good one. I had good defense, no bloodthirsty neighbors, and most importantly, easy access to the map's natural resources. Even though I had no neighbors trying to kill me, other players got attracted to my base real fast. I dealt with him quick though, he was practically naked and I was rich. All he did was make himself a target. I ran straight into his base on speed and showed him how much it hurts to be broke. I got so rich and stacked this game I must have felt pretty invincible because I tried walking right into this guy's base while he watched exactly what I was doing. My odds were ruined though as soon as he pulled out his secret weapon, a single totem. Yep, that's almost 2 stacks worth of crystals down the drain. Sometime later he tried rushing, and I have no idea how this happened, but after he got knocked into the void and already died, the respawn crystals got broken and I somehow won instantly. Not sure if that was a bug or if he rage quit, but I'll take it. Game 11, not much happened, got quickly rushed by someone better than me that also had a wing orb. Even though he was better, I'm still unhappy with this fighting. It's just so sloppy. I was kinda rusty since this was a different session a few days ago, and it definitely shows. Instead of warming up to not embarrass myself, I jumped straight into game 12 with the target in mind. I also tried defending with copper blocks this game. It's not a bad strategy, but far from the best. Also, this building was pretty slow. Definitely don't build this way yourself. I guess this guy must have saw my atrocious building and figured I'd be easy to take out, but he got a little too ambitious and died in a way that rivals only my own stupidity. Yeah, that one probably won't go into his epic Bed Wars montage. To add insult to injury, I almost immediately flew over and cut off his blue raspberry G Fuel supply. He did not think this was a pog move. Maybe I did end up wasting this armor by playing like that, but this was about sending a message. Earlier I mentioned having a target in mind, and it was this player with the Reviver skin. Just knew he wasn't worthy enough to wear it. Oh yeah, and he thinks placing blocks under him while running will make him faster. This one's definitely gone rogue. I tracked him down later and made sure he would have no advantage against the rest of us because he didn't deserve it. I geared up and went to exterminate him for good, but I made the critical mistake of carrying out 53 good shards. Always put your things in an ender chest before going out, or it will come back to bite you. Took out his nexus and did the smart thing by running away, but I was too slow and all my hard work went to him. He has too much money now. That angers me deeply. This game ended up lasting so long that all the nexuses got destroyed and even the borders started closing in, but I had so much good loot I just had to not mess it up. In the end, it came down to a sword fight. I was underpowered but also very, very bloodthirsty. Game 13, I started off by discovering the almost perfect bed defense for Crystal Rush. The tactic is just evenly cover your nexus in a single layer of wool and then a layer of concrete. It's that simple. You might be wondering why this works so well, and there's a few good reasons for it. Firstly, defending your nexus isn't nearly as viable as it is in Bed Wars, for instance, because there's no heavy defense options like obsidian, water blocks, or even much space on your island to work with. So a rather simple cover like this will have you wasting the least time building instead of doing more important things early game. The second reason is the wool. In Crystal Rush, the only tool you have is a pickaxe, which means that no matter how good it is, it can't break wool faster than your fist can. And TNT is a thing, but in my experience it's very uncommon, but that doesn't matter anyway since defense isn't a big priority. The reason for that being the accessibility of movement items making rushing very easy, and since it's undefendable, there's no point in trying too hard at all. Alright, back to the game now. This one was actually going very well. There weren't many other players and I had wings that I made very good use of. I don't know when this kid learns that watching dream videos doesn't make you better at the game, but I hope it's quick because this is just sad to look at. Got my nexus destroyed, but that doesn't matter since I'm convinced my last opponent was playing on a trackpad. This win goes out to all the MacBook Minecrafters out there. All 2.5 of you. Game 14, I went straight to dive bombing and robbery, but then ran into a gentleman with very long arms and lost all my hard work. Later I was just minding my own business, trying to earn some riches when I got bullied off the island. It clearly had a guy that ran things, and it definitely wasn't me. Yeah, there's not much to say about my death in this game, so here's what I wrote in my notes instead. I think it's very accurate. Game 15, I learned that speed bridge practice isn't always a good idea. That was right in front of middle. This didn't happen, it is a graphical glitch with OBS. Game was going pretty standard, though I flew over to Red's base and robbed him of his life savings, but very stupidly decided to leave by bridging, without putting the crystals in an ender chest. Don't do this. Despite that stupidity, I was able to make it to the end where I witnessed a stabbing on my front lawn. He left no witnesses. Good on him. Game 16 is the start of a short arc where I got bullied by bedwars sweats. This game doesn't even last a minute. He bridged over to my base before I could even wake up my brain cells and then locked me in my own home as he cancelled my insurance. Game 17, instead of taking this easy nexus, I unknowingly made the mistake of defending against someone who probably argues on Twitter why Luna client is the only way to play. I disagreed and got cancelled within seconds. Game 18, I tried to correct my earlier mistake but ran into the exact same guy who wanted to keep me cancelled for all eternity. He killed me while playing Minecraft with one hand and bullying people for not playing with FPS boosting texture packs on Twitter with the other. Game 19 was going pretty well for me. I even managed to take this guy's nexus and was now the only player left that could respawn. I had high hopes. But this is the Bed Wars sweats arc, so my hope means nothing. Game 20, I was reconstructing my brain cells from all that pure rage when I turned around to see a 20-ton hydrogen bomb flying straight into my front lawn. He toyed with me for way too long. If I was salty enough or 12 years old, I would report him for cyberbullying. Oh, and I died in the end. What did you expect? Alright, no more Bed Wars sweats. Just good clean fun from here on out. For now. This game, I was just casually committing felonies when my nexus started leaking and I for some reason did nothing about it whatsoever. I must have still had brain damage from all those other tryhards. Here's a valuable lesson I learned though: if you get into a sword fight, you must commit, always. In all these games, I can't recall a single instance where running away mid-fight ended good for me, so don't do it. That's my advice. Game 22, I got in a game with Booster of all people. What? If you look closely, you'll also notice I already knew how this one was gonna end. Luckily, he decided to not immediately end my existence, so deciding I would at least die with honor, I went to raid his house. I broke his nexus, he broke mine, and I put up a very good fight, but I learned that the only thing worse than a bedwars sweat is a manhunt YouTuber. Well, there goes my attempt at shameless clout chasing. Game 23, I bought a wing orb and used it for some casual breaking and entering. I still can't get over how broken this thing is. I'm almost certain it'll get nerfed at some point. I must have decided that winning was overrated because I spent my hard-earned money on a launch totem of all things. This thing is useless. It basically works like a launch orb, but you can only use it in the spot you place the totem and you can't move it, which I guess is fine, but for 4 Nexus crystals, that's just a waste. Not to mention, this thing's duration is pathetic. I only got to use it once before it poofed out of existence. Ended up in a 1v1 and died to a guy that had better stuff because he graduated from Hustle Academy. Game 24, I found George Not Found. Some guy was nibbling at my nexus, but judging by their skin I could tell they're about 4 years old, it wasn't a problem. Did what I like to do in real life to relieve stress, but their mum must have changed the Wi-Fi password because without even breaking the nexus, they disappeared just like that. Flew over to Red's base, made short work of him, and since I had all the riches I need at this point, I decided to try out the boost orb. I have no idea how it works, so it was definitely a mistake using it over an open void. That is the one and only time you will see it being used in these 100, and I think it says a lot about how useful it is. Wasted no time though and went straight into conflict with this guy that had no chance of killing me because his internet was on Cricket Wireless. Flew into a 1v1, but the Cricket gave up on him and he disconnected. However, for some reason the game didn't end and it appeared I was just stuck in this game now. Weird. At first I was frustrated because I really wanted to win after that streak of bad games, and this definitely counts, but no victory screen just didn't give me enough sweet serotonin. But I had a plan, just had to mine crystals for about 5 minutes. I built myself a trophy. It's big, glorious, and made out of copper because it's the only shiny block in this game. If you still don't count this as a win, you are delusional. This is the best victory of all these games. Eventually I got bored of marveling at my creation and decided to end it, but when I did, the game was still somehow going. Looks like the only thing capable of beating the Tubnet servers is Cricket. Game 25 is a public broadcast announcement. Please play Tubnet, I have videos to make. The servers were so dead I had to go into a duos game. Didn't really want to do this, but I had no other choice. It's such a shame to see things like this though. Tubnet is a really good server with very good minigames that have a lot of potential. I'm just so disappointed that no one plays it, and I don't know why. I play it very often in my spare time. If you've never heard of it, please give Tubnet a chance. Most people I've asked about it only have nice things to say, and it really has a lot of potential that it can only make the most of with a bigger player base. At the end of the day, I just really care about this server. I had a ton of fun recording this video and most likely want to make more, but that might not be possible if Tubnet dies. So please, give it a chance. Alright, public service over, we're back into normal games. This game I started by saying hi to my neighbor and had a very lucky slip up, and then a very unlucky slip up. Found a guy digging and very quickly found out who his favorite YouTuber is. After taking care of him, I saw that my nexus was getting cracked. So I geared up and went into battle. We had a very dramatic stare down, and I got bonked. Game 27, I started off with some top tier speed bridging. Threw myself straight into chaos and instead of covering, I kept digging that block. Rushed back to finish off the crystal that was already broken and got stuck. I deserve this. That guy pushed me, I didn't defend again, and he broke my nexus. I knocked him off, but all hope was lost. I tried, but he was better. Mine for about 10 hours to do a certain cloud totem strat. Don't do this, it's a total waste of time. I didn't even have enough to bridge, what was the point of that? I marveled at my useless bridge instead of just rushing the guy, but luckily I think he got confused by my stupidity. And then my nexus got destroyed. Great. For reasons I can't explain, I thought a healing totem would be a good idea. It wasn't. Chaos ensued and I got the blue guy, but the other guy started chasing me. This shot should have knocked him off, but it didn't, and he got me. Game 29 started with declaring war on my neighbor. Looked at him while thinking of a plan and decided that death was the only option. To intimidate him, I showed off my expert bombing skills. We fought for a while and I came out on top, but it lasted way too long. I had no chance of winning this game. Neighbor warfare is never worth it. Always make peace with the ones in your vicinity. At least I could defend myself for a bit with explosives. Would you believe he tried the same thing again? Third time's the charm though, he finally made it, but I bonked him. He failed at being Spider-Man and I failed at life. Oh look, a spam clicker. What an effective fighting tactic. I tried swooping in for the final kill, but my bomb went off. I was salty after that last game, so I didn't build up and went straight for the money. My neighbor left the door open, so I did what any gentleman would do and robbed him of his life savings. This is what happens when you don't lock your doors in time. Flew over to dismantle the last guy's lifeline and knocked him off for the win. For some reason, it kept me in the map after I won. Weird. Game 31, instead of cashing all that money I made, I decided to fight. Why? For some reason, I went back to the way of the cloud totem. It worked for me here, but don't do this. Ever. Was in the middle of a fight with the guy that robbed me when he remembered he could fly. I didn't make it. I had no chance. Game 32, my gamer instincts told me this guy in the lobby was a threat. I now had a target. Broke the blue guy's nexus but never saw him, so I went on a search and paid him a visit. Flew to my target and stole the good stuff. Did the same to Cyan. Now the whole economy was under my control. I walked over to my target and flexed at him with my massive wealth. Game 33 was more packed with players than usual, but after that last game, there's no way I could lose. I'm a professional. Drank some monster energy before running into Purple's base and stealing all his doubloons. I decided to give the bridge orb another try and aimed it perfectly toward my enemy's base. Placed down my beacon of safety and ran into probably the sloppiest fight I've had so far. Still won though. Intermission. I joined the lobby and it was completely packed. I had no idea what was going on. Tubbo was there, some YouTubers I never heard of, and the chat was pure chaos. I tried asking these nice people to fill me in, but no one helped. What a community. And then Tommy showed up with no YouTube rank. How depressing. I did the right thing and laughed at him for being irrelevant, but he ignored me. Honestly, I don't blame him. Then Woogie showed up, finally someone I recognized. I let him know I saw right through his intentions and he agreed with me. He's an honorable man. Then I learned that being popular in a block game makes you attract rats of all things. I sat in the lobby for a bit longer trying to bait for attention from YouTubers before eventually leaving. I can't sit in here forever. I have a video to make. Game 34 started with a dispute over the local crystal reserve. Spent all my wealth and got attacked by a guy who wasn't a fan of my financial status. I got rid of him, but later when bridging I slipped at the worst possible moment. Not sure if that was funny or embarrassing. Intermission, I found who was responsible for all that chaos in the lobby earlier. It was just Pangi live streaming. Apparently he had some interaction with Tubbo and the whole lobby went crazy. I tried stream sniping but forgot to record, so I only have this clip from his stream. Joked around in the chat a little, but before leaving I let him know just how dangerous his influence was. Game 35, this guy saw my bridge and didn't like it very much, so he decided I needed to be dealt with. Then I fell in a hole and lost the fight. This is what I get for stream sniping. Game 36 started with a hacker that was so quick he could only ever live in the darkness. This was my first encounter with a hacker on Crystal Rush. Little did I know this would be the first of many. Moderation must have been good at this time of day because he got the banner hammer almost immediately, which is what should usually happen, but sadly it doesn't. I drained the local crystal reserves and stupidly decided to push this guy instead of spending it on life insurance. Went back to get him and make short work of the guy, but my nexus got destroyed soon after. This is what I get for not investing in healthcare. Definitely almost died to the last guy and I survived this game, but it wasn't looking too good for me. Somehow broke his nexus and even survived long enough to get pretty stacked, but as soon as I flew into battle, the game ended. Weird win, but I'll take it. Game 37, I started recording while already deep in conflict. Spent all game fighting this guy, but he was a complete maniac. I had no chance. Started off game 38 wealthy and harassing my neighbors. I then got punished for my unethical exploitation of capitalism. Still got him though. However, no matter how rich I get, I still can't seem to keep the birds out. In the end, I died to a spam clicker even though I had a cloud totem in my hotbar. Yeah, that one stung a little. Game 39 was extremely packed. This economy was about to go crazy. This is the game where I learned you can't put things in your piggy bank while you're getting stabbed. But like I said, this economy was amazing. After killing this guy, he dropped 5 wing orbs. What? I won this game in about 30 seconds after that. What did you expect? Game 40 was probably my most standard victory yet. Defense, money, flying, killing, and victory. Game 41, I hopped in a duos game with Susie. It took us about 5 minutes to find a game. Please play Crystal Rush, the server is almost on its deathbed. I was a horrible teammate, explained nothing about the game and rushed into the team almost immediately. Yeah, I take full responsibility for what happened here. 42 was another duos game, but I was a slightly better teammate. I somewhat vaguely explained the rules and sat in a nook for 10 minutes. Better than nothing, I guess. We played pretty well, but I completely threw the game while pretending to be our lord and savior. This guy should have killed us, but his mom unplugged the internet, and we got him. I flew over to this guy on the bridge and fell straight to my death. After that display of pure skill, we became easy targets and I didn't make it. I should be honored to play with a PvP expert of this caliber. Game 43 was shaping up to be a good one. I flew in, stole the good stuff and bridged straight into a neighboring war zone. This base was insane. 2 guys were up there, he knocked me off and I ate a gapple behind some cover. Then the landlord showed up, took care of him while Purple robbed the riches and I took back what was rightfully stolen. The homeowner wasn't having any of this, so he wanted me dead, but I stabbed him to death. Welcome to London. Flew into the last guy's base, but didn't want to have a British victory, so I bombed him instead. POV Afghanistan. Game 44, I must have put something in in my drink because I killed this guy without even thinking. Whatever that high was, it wore off quick and I proceeded to die to this guy about 5 times. Eventually got fed up and bought a Gucci butterfly knife. He was dead as soon as he saw the brand name. This guy managed to save himself after I shot him off, but he got a cramp in his wing and fell in the void. Purple guy was bopping and weaving so hard I slipped off the edge out of shock. The astonishment wore off fast though and I quickly cut off his life support. Still ended up losing. Game 45 I went for a new strategy where I don't bother defending and go straight for the good crystals in the middle. I don't recommend doing it like this though, later you'll see a better tactic for playing quick and aggressive games. Got attacked by a guy who got to my base suspiciously fast and I could already tell something was off with him. Yep, turns out that guy was a fly hacker, but I knew he was easy to kill so I took him off his life insurance. Later stabbed him to death after his jetpack must have run out of fuel. Then I ran into Purple's base for an easy victory. Yeah, but next game I ran into the same guy. Thought this was pretty uncommon at the time. Oh, how naive of me. Reported him like a responsible person, but the mods must have been asleep so I knew I had to take care of this one myself. Tried to warn the others about the specimen, but this guy didn't listen and attacked me instead of focusing on the enemy. This community is the worst. Oh, and look who just showed up. This is gonna be just so fun. Tried taking him out, but he remembered to press the kill aura button and killed me before I could even think. Then I flew around for about 5 minutes observing and reporting him. I just really wanted to see this guy get banned. I want you to know, watching his gameplay was painful and I shouldn't have done this to myself. To no one's surprise, he ended up winning after fighting with one of the worst players I've ever seen for about 5 minutes straight. Game 47, more of the same. Hacker guy was in my game and I died pretty quickly. I don't even know what hacks he was using. He couldn't even see me. I was behind cover. What is this? But finally, after reporting him for so long, a mod showed up and bonked him with the ban hammer. Good job, team. Game 48, I hopped back into duos. Let's just hope no more hackers show up. Maybe almost got myself in trouble for self-promoting in the lobby chat, but it wasn't even my channel, so my hands are clean. The game itself went pretty okay. I spent almost all of it in bloody conflict, and the rest in the trash where I belong. We were doing not too bad until some guy dug his way right under our defenses and I had no idea where he was. I found him eventually, but we weren't going to survive much longer. I have no idea how this guy pulled me back. He must have just been built different. Stole green team's welfare and ran back to my property to get a raccoon off my lawn. This wasn't even a speed ridge fail. I'm just terrible. We then lost to a political statement. Don't spam click. You'll have no respect, not even from yourself. Game 49 was another duos game and it looked like we were going to spend it in neighbor warfare. My OBS froze. Maybe that's a good thing. This game was embarrassing. These next 50 games were all recorded in one day. If you don't believe me, just check the date. It took me forever to get into game 50 because Tubnet had just released a new game mode and it was hoarding all the attention. This is one of the few downsides to capitalism. Too bad this game didn't last too long though. My neighbor stole all the natural resources and killed me before I could make use of the renewables. Game 51, I couldn't allow myself to be poor again, so I went straight for the shiny stuff. This is also where I think I perfected the bed defense technique. Instead of wasting those excess wall blocks, just put them down in random places to create some irregularity in your structure. This can confuse players trying to break your nexus and make them waste a few seconds doing so, which in a game like this can make a big difference. Despite my improved infrastructure, I had another rat problem and barely took care of him in time. Pretty embarrassing to have that happen right as I perfect my strategy, but who knows, maybe I could have been dead by now. I went over to steal this guy's life insurance juice and he died soon after. Kind of underwhelming, but I won't complain. Game 52, this guy bridged to me, killed me, and broke my nexus in the blink of an eye. That was weird, but at the time I didn't think too much of it. If only I knew. Game 53 starts when I'm already dead because I died before I could even hit record. To the surprise of no one, that guy from the last game turned out to be a hacker, so I reported him a bunch of times. However, no mods came to help. And they wouldn't for the rest of the day. Game 54, I started with a military grade aerial attack. Geared up and flew to a different guy who luckily wasn't a threat. This is what happens when you buy Cricket Wireless. Bought more weapons and dive bombed into a 1v1 with the final player, but he panicked and flew away. However, he couldn't run forever. His rockets malfunctioned, he panicked, and I watched him fall to his death. Game 55, I ran into Hackerman Burger Guy and interrogated him in the lobby. He was very annoying. This entire conversation was pure masochism and I should have never gave him any attention. It's all he wants from me. Yeah, you can probably guess how this one ended. Game 56, he targeted me again because I must be the only person to ever acknowledge his sad, lonely existence. To this day, I still don't know if he thought we were friends or enemies. Game 57, Hackerman Burger Guy was still here and he targeted me to fill the empty void in his life. It didn't work. He has no friends and he never will. Casually watched him keep playing and reported him many times when I saw there was another hacker in the same game. What is this? I watched two mentally challenged gods attempt to fight each other for about 5 minutes. I'll spare you the details because I value your mental state. I managed to get into a hacker-free game 58 but died to bad players, probably because of my pounding headache from watching the hackers fight. Yeah, that guy kept pushing me and eventually broke my nexus. I got him back, but it didn't last much longer. Such a shame, I was definitely better than him too. Game 59 was another hacker game. Why does this keep happening? At least I cut off his lifeline before dying. Tried to go after the man himself, but his arms were too long and I couldn't reach. But who knows, maybe he wasn't a hacker and he had just perfected the art of bridging, but we were all too dumb to understand. Game 60, I was with the bridge master again and he showed off his new techniques. Maybe I could learn a thing or two from him if I wasn't dead. Red guy put up a good fight. He wasn't intimidated by his building in the slightest. Too bad blocks mean nothing to this man. Game 61 was a peaceful and fun one with no hackers, like it should be. Didn't do anything interesting this game, but all that matters is that it was fun. Oh yeah, and I won, but that's not important. Good things never last, however, and in game 62 I was with the bridge master again. His nexus was on the other side of the map, but I didn't care, I just wanted him dead. Later on, while in close quarters with the bridge master, I was approached by a fellow player who had the same intentions as I did. We decided to team up and he sacrificed himself while I prepared the explosives and sent him straight to hell where he belongs. I never saw him again after this. He must have smashed his PC in pure rage after getting all his fragile ego shattered in a block game for children. It pained me to do it, but I had to turn on my partner, and we had a very long fight that I luckily ended up winning. Thank you, Doiji. You did the right thing for the community. Game 63 doesn't exist. I guess I upset the hackers and they broke my OBS as revenge. Game 64 I started by letting everyone know who was in charge of this neighborhood. Later in the game I decided to buy some poison orbs to see if they were worth using and tested them on my remaining opponent. Definitely could have played it better though. I took him out without much trouble. He was very weak from fighting the guy next door all game. Game 65 features Hacker Man Burger Guy. I won't show it, he doesn't deserve my attention. Game 66 started off with more people than usual and I wanted to take advantage of the booming economy. Too bad I still can't speed bridge. Failed horribly at rushing this guy because he actually knows what he's doing and I died pretty quick after provoking him. Game 67 feeling bloodthirsty after the last one I played even more aggressively, not even protecting my nexus and running straight for the money. That actually worked out for me here and I was in the end game running to the last guy's base with poison orbs. I locked him in the gas chamber while I dismantled the respawn crystal. He could only watch in horror. Later I ran back to his base with even more gas bombs and suffocated him in the stink chamber. Is this cyberbullying? Maybe, but I thought it was funny. Yeah, but stink bombs are pretty useless, so I had to finish him off with the Gucci knife. Game 68 starts at the end because nothing really happened until then. Me and the last guy were fighting on a bridge with no respawns and playing very carefully. It was anyone's game. However, when I went back down to resupply, he took advantage of the situation and started chasing me. I fought well, but not well enough. Game 69, same situation with the same guy, 1v1 with no respawns. Ran straight into him for the final battle but missed almost all my hits and got knocked off. He just played better. This guy appears in many more games after this. I'll refer to him as William. He deserves some respect. Game 70, I spent skirmishing with the guy next door when Blue Guy showed up at my base. When I chased after him, he broke my nexus and we got shot down by Green who was at Yellow's base. Blue Guy fell but I ran straight into Yellow at Blue base. What even is this game? I died very scared and confused. Game 71 was going standard until I went to jump off this guy's base to get home and my nexus got destroyed mid-fall. He probably didn't mean to do it, but he timed it perfectly. I have to give him that. Game 72, I was put with William again. I knew I needed a plan to win this one because 1v1ing him was not an option. I wasted no time setting up defenses at my base and rushed straight to Big Willie's nexus. Poor guy got sandwiched between me and another player while severely underpowered. I almost felt bad for him, but knew I wasn't winning this game any other way. Then I flew over to the base of the guy that helped me eliminate the threat, broke its crystal, and spent the life insurance money on a shiny new sword. I attacked him in his own home with no mercy. This is what you have to do to win a war. Tried going for the rush tactic again next game, but learned very quickly that confidence does not equal skill. Game 74, my opponents flew over to each other's bases, so I paid the nearest one a visit. He got an express shipping on that Supreme hoodie though, and I stood no chance against a fashion statement like that. Then got jumped by the other Birdman, and he was richer than me, and in turn, more powerful. Game 75 is around the time I started playing the aggressive strat almost every game. To be honest, I didn't have that much time to record and didn't care whether I won or lost, as long as it was over pretty quick. Every game I would get 30 shards, buy a sword, armor, and 2 sets of blocks, and bridge straight to conflict. This time I was just peacefully harvesting crystals when this guy showed up out of nowhere and got rid of all my hard work. Then he flew straight into my base, and knowing I couldn't defend myself because he was better than me, I ran straight for his life support. I almost got it, but that's not good enough. Game 75 lasted about 5 seconds because the first thing I did was start a confrontation with William. You can probably guess how it ends. Game 77 I went straight to kill this player who, judging by the skin, probably survives exclusively off pink LED lights and monster energy. Don't be offended by that, it's a much better stereotype than the average Luna client player. This war took way too long due to a couple slip-ups, maybe even a disaster when my Nexus got destroyed, but I pulled through in the end. Yeah, but then little Timmy showed up and showed me his jitter clicking skills. This was a child. I died to this child. However, I don't care. I'm still better than this child. Game 78 I went to this guy's base, but he was just standing there. I'm not sure if he was okay. Anyway, went about my business as usual, stealing and getting into conflict. I actually managed to outrun that guy, which almost never happens, but I'm not complaining. Yeah, but then he got his revenge and it all went downhill from there. Game 79, I wasn't recording, but I witnessed a cyan guy attempting to break a nexus that never belonged to anyone, so I knew I had a target. He was fairly competent at fighting, but I wouldn't let him live after his earlier display of incompetence. He fell in the void, but now I had purple to deal with. I blew all my money on wing orbs, so despite this close call, I could just fly away to heal and finished him off while he was scared and hiding. Don't you just love preying on the weak? Game 80, I know you can't see, but William is in this game, so it wasn't going to be an easy one. Also, I'm not sure if this is the exact game, but somewhere at this point I finally learned how to speed bridge properly, even though I do fail a couple times after this. For me, the simple trick was to just always speed bridge while strafing to the right. I know it sounds weird, but trust me, if you try it, you'll also definitely see an improvement. However, this game I made the idiotic mistake of getting too greedy instead of going back to base and left William with 8 Nexus crystals. You know how this one ends. I won't show it. It's too graphic. Game 81 was going pretty standard, had a quick break-in on this guy's base and left to cash in his belongings at the pawn shop. However, later when I was flying over to finish the game, my elytra must have glitched because I most definitely wasn't touching the bridge there. Luckily, the other guy probably slipped somewhere as well, and I won the game in the comfort of my own home. Game 82 is just bad neighbor warfare that doesn't end well. I've already publicly discussed why it's horrible many times, so I have no interest in showing this. Game 83 I was back to neighbor wars, but actually managed to pull off a nice clutch. Later I got my Nexus destroyed, walked around thinking of a plan, and came to the conclusion that the only answer was the sweet release of death. Game 84 I was just fighting this guy in the middle islands as I normally would when he suddenly grew wings and shattered by healing crystals. My chakra says that this is not Pog. Game 85 I was running back to spend all my riches when the void pulled me in. That was in no way my fault, I swear. Later I went to steal this player's funny blue rocks and ran away, but while running, my own rocks got stolen and now I was pretty much stuck between 2 people that wanted me dead. This game right here is just karma. I kinda deserved that. Skipping straight to the end game 86, there were 3 of us all without nexuses. Luckily I was responsible for one of the man's lack of life insurance, so I was able to gear up pretty well. We ended up in a 3-man chase. Blue guy fell and I got knocked off because I used a scroll wheel and couldn't pull out my wings fast enough. Game 87 I found a friend in the lobby and decided I would protect him even if it kills me. And I did. Took out Blue even though I almost shattered my mouse out of frustration because of his spam clicking. I really didn't want to kill that Wilbur skin guy, so I just ran around the map thinking of a plan. Decided on ending his life with a mountain of explosives because content, so I spent the whole game mining resources to build bombs in my garage. This was a complete meme game, but mining this weak shard in my base gave me a certain idea, that being what would happen if I were to spend all game sat at my base digging the weak shards and how many could I get. It was a little too late to try that this game, but it's definitely something I'll be attempting the next couple games. I also had a change of heart towards the end and decided to let the Wilbur guy win so he would actually want to play the server, but unfortunately he fell in the void because I spent too long taunting him. I definitely need to be less toxic. Anyways, game 88 I started my attempt at the mining strat from last game because I was very bored and thought it would be good for content. My plan was to find someone vulnerable close by, break their nexus, buy a diamond pickaxe and just mine weak shards for as long as possible. Didn't do too well though. I did get that guy's crystals, but it was way too late into the game at this point. Then my OBS froze. I have no idea what happened, but it definitely wasn't a successful attempt. Game 89 had a lot of potential. This game was pretty full, so players would be busy and wouldn't disturb me in my little diggy hole. However, that didn't happen. I spent all game in a neighbor war that I didn't even end up winning. Went to neighbor war again in game 90, and even though he broke my nexus, I killed him, so I had the crystals, and that's all that mattered. Mined for about 2 seconds before a completely unrelated guy showed up, and he had a shinier sword, so I had no way of defending myself. Game 91 had more adjacent, resident, armed conflict that I didn't end up winning. I'm getting sick of this already. Game 92 started with the hacker of all things, and this was just an even bigger hit to my morale for the mining meme. But I prevailed and ended up breaking his nexus. At least no one innocent will have to suffer for my memes. I barely got to do any mining before a random guy showed up, and since he hates having fun, he killed me in cold blood. Public service announcement: if you see someone doing a meme in your game, let them have fun. If you end that, you have no soul and should be forbidden from any games ever. Anyways, I tried doing this with a little more thought and flew out to steal this guy's pickaxe money, but he had good security, so I didn't manage. He ended up breaking my nexus, but luckily for me, my only purpose is digging, so it didn't even matter. I even did the mining meme, all in his base. But of course, that only went as well as it could. Game 94, the strat was going pretty well. I stole some pickaxe money and managed to mine at my base for almost 4 minutes. I got almost a full inventory of crystals, that being almost 2,000, before someone walked into my base and ended any joy I had left in life. Game 95 was just bad. I got my nexus destroyed and went for this other guy's crystal and died in a drawn out knife fight that's just painful to watch. This game was a pretty good mining attempt, but only got about as far as I did last time before a guy killed me with no mercy. I didn't even hit him once. I only crouched. He's just evil. Game 97 started with me dying to a spam clicker on the middle islands, just what I needed to kill my morale even more. Didn't even get to do any mining this game because my neighbor woke up and chose violence. Later got my nexus destroyed by a different guy and died while trying to escape. Game 98 would be the last where I tried the mining meme, and despite all odds and rationality, it actually went pretty well for me. Went straight over to steal my neighbor's kids allowance, they rage quit, and I went straight to mining. I was just minding my own business, being an idiot, when my nexus got destroyed, but that's okay because I'm not even on my island anyway, and I don't care, I'm on a mission. However, he later approached me and I tried to make peace with him in the name of memes, and it surprisingly worked. That is until he got bored because he's probably a child with burnt out dopamine receptors from watching too much TikTok, and he killed me despite me trying to make peace. In total, I got just over 3,000 weak shots, and I know more is possible, but that's the best I could do without any help. Game 99, figured since the video is almost over I would do my best to show off what I've learned over all these games so far, so I decided to put my knowledge to the test by playing aggressive using the best tactic I've devised in almost 100 games. I mined until I got exactly 32 crystals because I found that's all you need for a sword, armor, and just enough blocks. Although I shouldn't be failing speed bridging this late into the video, that was embarrassing. I mined the middle crystals until I had just enough for a wing orb and a pickaxe, but when I was coming back I was being attacked. He was a spam clicker and I am slightly competent now. Since I had a close target, I bought some murder supplies instead and made short work of the rabid animal next to my house. Anyways, remember to put your nexus crystals in an ender chest early game even if you're playing aggressive. I had to learn that the hard way. I got attacked by a dripped out birdman, and instead of defending myself, I remembered that offense is the best defense, so I flew over to steal his life insurance. That was a great play and I should have came out on top, but sadly my downfall was lag spike and I fell in the void. And here we are. Game 100. Just like last game, I wanted to show off everything I had learned throughout these games, but this time playing for the win and not super aggressively. Built up my defenses with the good old one layer wall plus random blocks method and speed bridge straight to the middle islands. If you have trouble speed bridging, just use my method of always strafing right. I don't see anyone talk about it and it worked like magic for me. The best strat for mining good crystals I found is to get exactly 44 shards, which is just enough for a set of iron gear and a wing orb. You can probably guess what that's for. Broke some guy's nexus without any issue, but while I was running back, I saw someone was probably flying towards my base. So I used the quick and painless method of suicide. He knew what he was doing, however, and tried to block me in, but I'm experienced now, so I can defend myself. Now it's a 1v1 situation. I have quite literally anything I could need, so it should be no surprise that I was able to swoop in and take the final victory with almost no issue at all. Thank you for watching until the end. I worked very hard, as you can probably tell, and I hope you enjoyed. I like Crystal Rush. Since recording this, I've played it a bit more in my own time, and it definitely has a lot of potential. Also, Tubnet is a great server that deserves more recognition, so please, give it a chance if you haven't already. As for me, I may or may not be planning another 100 games video on here, so stay tuned if that's something you're interested in. Also, I don't know how to end videos, and I don't care about watch time, so here's some awkward silence for a few seconds, and then a scheduled fade to black. Enjoy!